Shalom. Dietrich Bonhoeffer, 4 February 1906 to 9 April 1945, was a German Lutheran pastor, theologian, anti-Nazi dissident, and key founding member of the Confessing Church. His writings on Christianity's role in the secular world have become widely influential, and his book, The Cost of Discipleship, is described as a modern classic. Apart from his theological writings, Bonhoeffer was known for his staunch resistance to the Nazi dictatorship, including vocal opposition to Hitler's euthanasia program and genocidal persecution of the Jews. He was arrested in April 1943 by the Gestapo and imprisoned at Tegel prison for 1.5 years. Later, he was transferred to Flossenburg concentration camp. Bonhoeffer was accused of being associated with the 20 July plot to assassinate Adolf Hitler, and was then quickly tried along with other accused plotters, including former members of the Abwehr, the German military intelligence office. He was hanged on 9 April 1945 as the Nazi regime was collapsing. Bonhoeffer was born on 4 February 1906 in Breslau, then Germany, now Poland, into a large family. In addition to other siblings, Dietrich had a twin sister, Sabina. He and Sabina were the 6th and 7th children out of 8. His father was Karl Bonhoeffer, a psychiatrist and neurologist, noted for his criticism of Sigmund Freud, and his mother, Paula Bonhoeffer, was a teacher and the granddaughter of Protestant theologian Karl von Haas, I hope I'm saying that correctly, and painter Stanislaus von Krockruck. Sorry, don't know it. Bonhoeffer's family dynamic and his parents' values enabled him to receive a high level of education and also encouraged his curiosity, which in turn impacted his ability to lead others around him, specifically in the church setting. His oldest brother, Karl Friedrich Bonhoeffer, became a chemist and, along with Paul Hartig, discovered the spin isomers of hydrogen in 1929. Isomers? And both of Bonhoeffer's older sisters married men who were eventually executed by the Nazis. Christel was imprisoned by the Nazis but survived. Sabina and their youngest sister, Susan Bonhoeffer Dress, each married men who survived Nazism. Bonhoeffer completed his Staatsexamen, the equivalent of a master's degree, at the Protestant Faculty of Theology at the University of Tübingen. At the age of 21, on 17 December 1927, he went on to complete his Doctor of Theology degree from Humboldt University of Berlin, graduating summa cum laude. Still too young to be ordained, at the age of 24, Bonhoeffer went to the United States in 1930 for postgraduate study and a teaching fellowship at New York City's Union Theological Seminary. Although Bonhoeffer found that the American seminary's theological education lacked intellectual rigor, there is no theology here. He underwent life-changing experiences and made significant friendships. He studied under Reinhold Niebuhr and met Frank Fisher, a black fellow seminarian who introduced him to the Abyssinian Baptist Church in Harlem, where Bonhoeffer taught Sunday school and formed a lifelong love for African American spirituals, a collection of which he took back to Germany. He heard Adam Clayton Powell Sr. preach the gospel of social justice and became sensitive to the social injustices experienced by ethnic minorities in the U.S., as well as the ineptitude of churches to bring about integration. Bonhoeffer began to see things from below, from the perspective of those who suffer oppression. He observed, here one can truly speak and hear about sin and grace and the love of God. The Black Christ is preached with rapturous passion and vision. Later, Bonhoeffer referred to his impressions abroad as the point at which he turned from phraseology to reality. He also learned to drive an automobile, although he failed the driving test 3 times. He borrowed a 1924 Oldsmobile sedan from a member of the Greenville Community Church in Westchester County in order to drive to Mexico. After returning to Germany in 1931, Bonhoeffer became a lecturer in systematic theology at the University of Berlin. Deeply interested in ecumenism, he was appointed by the World Alliance for Promoting International Friendship through the Churches, a forerunner of the World Council of Churches, as one of its 3 European youth secretaries. At this time, he seems to have undergone something of a personal conversion from being a theologian primarily attracted to the intellectual side of Christianity to being a dedicated man of faith, resolved to carry out the teachings of Christ, as he found it revealed in the Gospels. On 15 November 1931, at the age of 25, he was ordained at Old Prussian United St. Matthew in Berlin-Tiergarten. Bonhoeffer's promising academic and ecclesiastic career was dramatically knocked off course by the Nazi ascent to power on 30 January 1933. He was a determined opponent of the regime from its first days. 2 days after Hitler was installed as Chancellor, Bonhoeffer delivered a radio address in which he attacked Hitler and warned Germany against slipping into an idolatrous cult of the Führer, who could very well turn out to be Verführer, misleader or seducer. His broadcast was abruptly cut off, though it is unclear whether the newly elected Nazi regime was responsible. In April 1933, Bonhoeffer raised the first voice for church resistance to Hitler's persecution of Jews, declaring that the church must not simply bandage the victims under the wheel, but I am a spoke in the wheel itself. In November 1932, 2 months before the Nazi takeover, there had been an election for presbyters and synodals of church officials of the German Landskirche, Protestant historical established churches. This election was marked by a struggle within the Old Prussian Union Evangelical Church between the nationalistic German Christian Deutsche Christen movement and young reformers, a struggle that threatened to explode into schism. In July 1933, Hitler unconstitutionally imposed a new church elections. Bonhoeffer put all his efforts into the election, campaigning for the selection of independent non-Nazi officials. Despite Bonhoeffer's efforts, in the rigged July election, an overwhelming number of key church positions went to Nazi-supported Deutsche Christian people. The Deutsche Christen people won a majority in the General Synod of the Old Prussian Union Evangelical Church and all its provincial synods except Westphalia, and in synods of all other Protestant church bodies except for the Lutheran churches of Bavaria, Hanover, and Württemberg. The non-Nazi opposition regarded these bodies as uncorrupted, intact churches, as opposed to the so-called destroyed churches. In opposition to Nazification, Bonhoeffer urged an interdict upon all pastoral services, baptisms, weddings, funerals, etc., but Karl Barth and others advised against such a radical proposal. In August 1933, Bonhoeffer and Hermann Sass were deputized by opposition church leaders to draft the Bethel Confession, a new statement of faith in opposition to the Deutsche Christen movement. Notable for affirming God's fidelity to Jews as his chosen people, the Bethel Confession was so watered down to make it more palatable that Bonhoeffer ultimately refused to sign it. In September 1933, the National Church Synod at Wittenberg voluntarily passed a resolution to apply the Arian paragraph within the church, meaning that pastors and church officials of Jewish descent were to be removed from their posts. Regarding this as an affront to the principle of baptism, Martin Niemöller founded the Farbnotsbund, Pastors Emergency League. In November, a rally of 20,000 Deutsche Christians demanded the removal of the Old Testament from the Bible, which was seen by many as heresy, further swelling the ranks of the Emergency League. Within weeks of its founding, more than a third of German pastors had joined the Emergency League. It was the forerunner of the Bekennende Kirche, Confessing Church, which aimed to preserve traditional, biblically based Christian beliefs and practices. The Barmen Declaration, drafted by Barth in May 1934 and adopted by the Confessing Church, insisted that Christ, not the Führer, was the head of the church. The adoption of the declaration has often been viewed as a triumph, although by Wilhelm Niemöller's estimate, only 20% of German pastors supported the Confessing Church. When Bonhoeffer was offered a parish post in eastern Berlin in the autumn of 1933, he refused it in protest at the nationalist policy and accepted a 2-year appointment as a pastor of 2 German-speaking Protestant churches in London, the German Lutheran Church in Dakers Road, Sydenham, and the German Reformed Church of St. Paul's, Gulston Street, Whitechapel. He explained to Barth that he had found little support for his views, even among friends, and that it was about time to go for a while into the desert. Barth regarded this as running away from the real battle. He sharply rebuked Bonhoeffer, saying, "I can only reply to all the reasons and excuses which you put forth, and what of the German church?" Barth accused Bonhoeffer of abandoning his post and wasting his splendid theological armory while the house of your church is on fire, and chided him to return to Berlin by the next ship. Bonhoeffer, however, did not go to England simply to avoid trouble at home. He hoped to put the ecumenical movement to work in the interest of the Confessing Church. He continued his involvement with the Confessing Church, running up a high telephone bill to maintain his contact with Martin Niemöller. In international gatherings, Bonhoeffer rallied people to oppose the Deutsche Christen movement and its attempt to amalgamate Nazi nationalism with the Christian Bible. When Bishop Theodor Heckel, the official in charge of German Lutheran Church of Foreign Affairs, traveled to London to warn Bonhoeffer to abstain from any ecumenical activity not directly authorized by Berlin, Bonhoeffer refused to abstain. In 1935, Bonhoeffer was offered a coveted opportunity to study nonviolent resistance under Gandhi in his ashram. However, remembering Barth's rebuke, Bonhoeffer decided to return to Germany instead, where he was the head at an underground cemetery in Fingelwald. Sorry about my bad German. For training Confessing Church pastors. As the Nazi suppression of the confessing church intensified, Barth was driven back to Switzerland in 1935. Niemöller was arrested in July 1937, and in August 1936, Bonhoeffer's authorization to teach at the University of Berlin was revoked after he was denounced as a pacifist and enemy of the state by Theodor Heckel. Bonhoeffer's efforts for the underground seminaries included securing necessary funds. He found a great benefactor in Ruth von Kleinst-Retzau. In times of trouble, Bonhoeffer's former students and their wives would take refuge in von Kleinst-Retzau's Pomeranian estate. Hey, Chris. Anybody interested in discussing this stuff is welcome to join the StreamYard. Later, he fell in love with Kleist-Retzau's granddaughter, Maria von Wedemeyer, to whom he became engaged 3 months before his arrest in 1943. By August 1937, Himmler had decreed that education and examination of confessing church ministry candidates illegal. In September 1937, the Gestapo closed the seminary at Fingelwald and by November arrested 27 pastors and former students. It was around this time that Bonhoeffer published his best-known book, The Cost of Discipleship, a study on the Sermon on the Mount, in which he not only attacked cheap grace as a cover for ethical laxity, but also preached costly grace. Bonhoeffer spent the next 2 years secretly traveling from one East German village to another to conduct seminary on the run supervision of his students, most of whom were working illegally in small parishes within the old Prussian ecclesiastical province of Pomerania. The von Blumenthal family hosted the seminary on its estate of Groß-Schlonwitz. The pastors of Groß-Schlonwitz and neighboring villages supported the education by employing and housing the students, among whom was Eberhard Bethke, who later edited Bonhoeffer's letters and papers from prison as vicars in their congregations. In 1938, the Gestapo banned Bonhoeffer from Berlin. In summer 1939, the seminary was able to move to Siggershof, an outlawing estate, won't even try, of the von Kleinst family in won't even try. In March 1940, the Gestapo shut down the seminary there following the outbreak of World War II. Bonhoeffer's monastic communal life and teaching at Fingelwald Seminary formed the basis of his book, The Cost of Discipleship and Life Together. Bonhoeffer's sister, Sabina, along with her Jewish classified husband, Gerhard Liebholz, and their 2 daughters, escaped to England by way of Switzerland in 1938. In February 1938, Bonhoeffer made an initial contact with members of the German resistance when his father-in-law, Hans von Dohnanyi, introduced him to a group seeking Hitler's overthrow at the Abwehr, the German military intelligence service. Bonhoeffer also learned from, won't even try, that war was imminent. He was particularly troubled by the prospect of being conscripted. As a committed pacifist opposed to the Nazi regime, he could never swear an oath to Hitler and fight in his army, though refusal to do so was potentially a capital offense. He worried also about consequences his refusing military service would have for the confessing church, as it was a move that would be frowned upon by most Christians and their churches at the time. It was at this juncture that Bonhoeffer left for the United States in June 1939 at the invitation of Union Theological Seminary in New York. Amid much inner turmoil, he soon regretted his decision and returned after 2 weeks. Despite strong pressures from his friends to stay in the United States, he wrote to Reinhold Niebuhr, "I have come to the conclusion that I made a mistake in coming to America. I must live through this difficult period in our national history with the people of Germany. I will have no right to participate in the reconstruction of Christian life in Germany after the war if I do not share the trials of this time with my people. Christians in Germany will have to face the terrible alternative of either willing the defeat of their nation in order that Christian civilization may survive, or willing the victory of their nation and thereby destroying civilization. I know which of these alternatives I must choose, but I cannot make that choice from security." Back in Germany, Bonhoeffer was further harassed by the Nazi authorities, as he was forbidden to speak in public and was required regularly to report his activities to the police. In 1941, he was forbidden to print or to publish. In the meantime, Bonhoeffer had joined the Abwehr, a German military intelligence organization. Donaghy, already part of the Abwehr, brought him into the organization on the claim that his wide ecumenical contacts would be of use to Germany, thus protecting him from conscription to active service. Bonhoeffer presumably knew about various 1943 plots against Hitler through Donaghy, who was actively involved in the planning. In the face of Nazi atrocities, the full scale of which Bonhoeffer learned through the Abwehr, he concluded that the ultimate question for a responsible man to ask is not how he is to extricate himself heroically from the affair, but how the coming generation shall continue to live. He did not justify his action, but accepted that he was taking guilt upon himself, as he wrote, "When a man takes guilt upon himself in responsibility, he imputes his guilt to himself and no one else. He answers for it. Before other men he is justified by dire necessity, before himself he is acquitted by his conscience, but before God he hopes only for grace." In a 1932 sermon, Bonhoeffer said, "The blood of martyrs might once again be demanded, but this blood, if we really have the courage and loyalty to shed it, will not be innocent, shining like that of the first witnesses for the faith. On our blood lies heavy guilt, the guilt of the unprofitable servant who is cast into outer darkness." Under cover of the Abwehr, Bonhoeffer served as a courier for the German resistance movement to reveal its existence and intentions to the Western Allies in hope of garnering their support, and through his ecumenical contacts abroad to secure possible peace terms with the Allies for a post-Hitler government. His visits to Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and Switzerland were camouflaged as legitimate intelligence activities for the Abwehr. In May 1942, he met Anglican Bishop George Bell of Chichester, a member of the House of Lords and an ally of the Confessing Church. Contacted by Bonhoeffer's exiled brother-in-law Liebholz, through him feelers were sent to British Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden. However, the British government ignored these, as it had all other approaches from the German resistance. Donaghy and Bonhoeffer were also involved in Abwehr operations to help German Jews escape to Switzerland. During this time, Bonhoeffer worked on ethics and wrote letters to keep up the spirits of his former students. He intended ethics as his magnum opus, but it remained unfinished when he was arrested. On 5 April 1943, Bonhoeffer and Donaghy were arrested and imprisoned. On 13 January 1943, Bonhoeffer had become engaged to Maria von Wiedemeyer, the granddaughter of his close friend and Finkelwalde seminary supporter Ruth von Klein-Stretzau. Ruth had campaigned for his marriage for several years, although up until late October 1942, Bonhoeffer remained a reluctant suitor, despite Ruth being part of his innermost circle. A large age gap loomed between Bonhoeffer and Maria. He was 36 to her 18. Bonhoeffer had first met his would-be fiancée Maria when she was his confirmation student at age 11. The two also spent almost no time alone together prior to the engagement and did not see each other between becoming engaged and Bonhoeffer's 5 April arrest. Once he was in prison, however, Maria's status as a fiancée became invaluable, as it meant she could visit Bonhoeffer and correspond with him. While their relationship was troubled, she was a source of food and smuggled messages. Bonhoeffer made Eberhard Bethge his heir, but Maria, in allowing her correspondence with Bonhoeffer to be published after her death, provided an invaluable addition to the scholarship. For a year and a half, Bonhoeffer was imprisoned at Tegel prison awaiting trial. There he continued his work in religious outreach among his fellow prisoners and guards. Sympathetic guards helped smuggle his letters out of prison to Eberhard Bethge and others, and these uncensored letters were posthumously published in Letters and Papers from Prison. One of those guards, a corporal named Knobloch, even offered to help him escape from the prison and disappear with him, and plans were made for that end. But Bonhoeffer declined it, fearing Nazi retribution against his family, especially his brother Klaus and brother-in-law Hans von Sorry about that, people. Hopefully, I am back. Looks like I am back. Yeah. Hopefully, you guys can hear me. Okay, where was I? Um, if there's still problems with the sound, please somebody say something. Um, After the failure of the 20 July plot on Hitler's life in 1944 and the discovery in September 1944 of secret Abwehr documents relating to the conspiracy, Bonhoeffer. My computer froze up. Sorry. Yeah, just my computer froze up. Um, Bonhoeffer was accused of association with the conspirators. He was transferred from the military prison Tegel in Berlin, where he had been held for 18 months, to the detention cellar of the house prison of. Thank you. The Reich Security Main Office, the Gestapo's high security prison. In February 1945, he was secretly moved to Buchenwald concentration camp and finally to Flossenburg concentration camp. On 4 April 1945, the diaries of Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, head of the Abwehr, were discovered, and in a rage upon reading them, Hitler ordered the Abwehr conspirators to be destroyed. Bonhoeffer was led away just as he concluded his final Sunday service and asked an English prisoner, Payne Best, to remember him to Bishop George Bell of Chichester if he should ever reach his home. This is the end for me, the beginning of life. Bonhoeffer was sentenced to death on 8 April 1945 by SS Judge Otto Thorbeck at a drumhead court-martial without witnesses. Records of proceedings or a defense in Flossenburg concentration camp. He was executed there by hanging at dawn on 9 April 1945. Bonhoeffer was stripped of his clothing and led naked into the execution yard, where he was hanged with 6 others: Admiral Wilhelm Canaris, General Hans Oster, Canaris's deputy, General Karl Sack, a military jurist, businessman Theodor Strunk, and German resistance fighter Ludwig Gehr. Bonhoeffer's brother, Klaus Bonhoeffer, and his brother-in-law, Rudiger Schleicher, were executed in Berlin on the night of 22 to 23 April as Soviet troops were already fighting in the capital. His brother-in-law, Hans von Donnenye, had been executed in Sachsenhausen concentration camp on April 9. Eberhard Bethke, a student and friend of Bonhoeffer's, writes of a man who saw the execution. I saw Pastor Bonhoeffer kneeling on the floor, praying fervently to God. I was most deeply moved by the way this lovable man prayed, so devout and so certain that God heard his prayer. At the place of execution, he again said a short prayer and then climbed the few steps to the gallows, brave and composed. His death ensued after a few seconds. In the almost 50 years that I worked as a doctor, I have hardly ever seen a man die so entirely submissive to the will of God. This is the traditional account of Bonhoeffer's death, which over the decades went unchallenged. However, many recent biographers see problems with the story, not due to Bethke, but his source. The purported witness was a doctor at Flossenburg concentration camp, Hermann Fischer Holström, who may have wished to minimize the suffering of the condemned men to reduce his own culpability in their executions. JLF Mogensen, a former prisoner at Flossenburg, cited the length of time it took for the execution to be completed, almost 6 hours, plus departures from camp procedure that would probably not have been allowed to prisoners so late in the war as jarring inconsistencies, considering that the sentences had been confirmed at the highest levels of Nazi government by individuals with a pattern of torturing prisoners who dared to challenge the regime. It is more likely that the physical details of Bonhoeffer's death may have been much more difficult than we earlier had imagined. Other recent critics of the traditional account are more caustic. One termed the Fischer-Hallström story as unfortunately a lie, citing additional factual inconsistencies. For example, the doctor described Bonhoeffer climbing the steps to the noose, but as at Flossenburg, the gallows had no steps. Moreover, it appears that Fischer-Hallström had the job of reviving political prisoners after they had been hanged until they were almost dead, in order to prolong the agony of their dying. Another critic charges that Fischer-Hallström's subsequent statement about Bonhoeffer as kneeling in wordy prayer belonged to the realm of legend. The disposition of Bonhoeffer's remains is not known. His body may have been cremated outside the camp along with hundreds of other recently executed or dead prisoners. Or American troops may have placed his body in one of several mass graves in which they interred the unburied dead of the camp. Bonhoeffer's life as a pastor and theologian of great intellect and spirituality, who lived as he preached, and his being killed because of his opposition to Nazi National Socialism, exerted great influence and inspiration for Christians across broad denominations and ideologies, and Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement in the United States and the anti-communist democratic movement in Eastern Europe during the Cold War. Bonhoeffer is commemorated in the liturgical calendars of several Christian denominations on the anniversary of his death, 9 April. This includes many parts of the Anglican Communion, where he is sometimes identified as a martyr and other times not. His commemoration in the liturgical calendar of the Evangelical Lutheran Church in America uses the liturgical color of white, which is typically used for non-martyred saints. In 2008, the General Conference of the United Methodist Church, which does not enumerate saints, officially recognized Bonhoeffer as a modern-day martyr. He was the first martyr to be so recognized who lived after the Reformation, and one of only two as of 2017. Bonhoeffer is remembered in the Church of England with a commemoration on 9 April. The Deutsche Evangelische Kirche at Sydenham, London, at which he preached between 1933 and 1935, was destroyed by bombing in 1944. A replacement church was built in 1958 and named Dietrich Bonhoeffer Kirche in his honor. Dietrich Bonhoeffer's text, "By Gentle Powers," is known to a large audience as a worship song. The song is often sung at funerals, but in 2021 it was voted the most popular hymn in Germany. The best-known melody was written by Siegfried Fietz in 1970. Overshadowed by the dramatic events of his life, Bonhoeffer's theology has nevertheless been influential. His theology has a fragmentary, unsystematic nature, due at least in part to his untimely death, and is subject to diverse and contradictory interpretations, sometimes necessarily based on speculation and projection. So, for example, while his Christocentric approach appeals to conservative, confession-minded Protestants, his commitment to justice and ideas about religionless Christianity are emphasized by liberal Protestants. Central to Bonhoeffer's theology is Christ, in whom God and the world are reconciled. Bonhoeffer's God is a suffering God whose manifestation is found in this worldliness. Bonhoeffer believed that the incarnation of God in flesh made it unacceptable to speak of God and the world in terms of two spheres, an implicit attack upon Luther's doctrine of the two kingdoms. Bonhoeffer stressed personal and collective piety and revived the idea of imitation of Christ. He argued that Christians should not retreat from the world, but act within it. He believed that two elements were constitutive of faith: the implementation of justice, and the acceptance of divine suffering. Bonhoeffer insisted that the church, like the Christians, had to share in the suffering of God at the hands of a godless world if it were to be a true church of Christ. In his prison letters, Bonhoeffer raised tantalizing questions about the role of Christianity and the church in a world come of age, where human beings no longer need a metaphysical God as a stopgap to human limitations, and mused about the emergence of a religionless Christianity where God could be unclouded from metaphysical constructs of the previous 1900 years. Influenced by Barth's distinction between faith and religion, Bonhoeffer had a critical view of the phenomenon of religion and asserted that a revelation abolished religion, which he called the garment of faith. Having witnessed the complete failure of the German Protestant Church as an institution in the face of Nazism, he saw this challenge as an opportunity of renewal for Christianity. Years after Bonhoeffer's death, some Protestant thinkers developed his critique into a thoroughgoing attack against traditional Christianity in the Death of God movement, which briefly attracted the attention of the mainstream culture in the mid-1960s. However, some critics, such as Jacques Ellul and others, have charged that those radical interpretations of Bonhoeffer's insights amount to a grave distortion, that Bonhoeffer did not mean to say that God no longer had anything to do with humanity and had become a mere cultural artifact. More recent Bonhoeffer interpretation is more cautious in this regard, respecting the parameters of the neo-Orthodox school to which he belonged. Bonhoeffer also influenced Comboni missionary father Ezekiel Ryman. English translations of Bonhoeffer's works, most of which were originally written in German, are available. Many of his lectures and books were translated into English over the years and are available from multiple publishers. These works are listed following the Fortress Press edition of Bonhoeffer's writings. The English-language edition of Bonhoeffer's works contains, in many cases, more material than the German works series because of the discovery of hitherto unknown correspondence. All 16 volumes of the English Bonhoeffer Works edition of Bonhoeffer's Oeuvre had been published by October 2013. A volume of selected readings entitled The Dietrich Bonhoeffer Reader, which presents a chronological view of Bonhoeffer's theological development, became available by 1 November 2013. Listing of his works, bibliography, further readings, films, plays, and then references. So why am I reading this? First of all, I welcome anybody who wants to discuss this to please join. There's a link to StreamYard pinned to YouTube, and frankly, it would be better if I had somebody to discuss this stuff with. So why am I reading this? Oh, I forgot to put up the thing. You guys can find the Wikipedia page in the Wikipedia page on Dietrich Bonhoeffer. First, they came for the Anadromists. So I'm reading this because of the discussions that we had on the Bridges of Meaning server before I left it again. And the reason I left it was because the discussion was becoming about me. It's not about me. It's not about me being Jewish. It's not about me having a Jewish view. It is not about Um, what one person tried to say was that Christians, being Christian, must not resist evil. This is patently, silly, stupidly untrue. Christianity is not about being weak. Christianity is has never been weak. Has certainly never been as weak as people um, excuse their own weakness by pretending it has been. When we look at what happened in Weimar Germany, Roman! Let me put this on. Roman!
How you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm doing okay. So, I don't know about weak, but definitely quietest. There's like that whole thread, and Jesus kind of put it there with the whole, give unto Caesar thing. Um, and when you think about when he was saying it, it's like it's a really harsh saying to say give unto Caesar when they're like killing you. Um,
Um, so there is a Mishnah in, and yes, I do always quote Mishnahs at you.
that's
Did
fine.
you did you ever read did you ever read through the sayings of the fathers? The
I
Mishnah
don't even know what the
Avot?
sayings of the fathers are. Uh,
The sayings of the fathers is a particular collection. It's a particular section of the Mishnah. So it's I usually call it to Christians Mishnah Avot, so they realize that it is a section of the Mishnah.
okay.
The and Avot means fathers.
Yeah, I know you had said at some point that actually, yeah, I'd like all Christians to go read this one. Is it the
Yeah,
Pirkei Avot?
Pirkei
On
Avot. Yeah, that's one of
yeah,
the
that's
ways
the
it's called. Yes,
okay. That's what it's called on Sephira. So
Sephir. Yeah, Sepharia. Yeah.
Sepharia.
Um, and the first two chapters, I would say definitely. Four chapters, probably, possibly all 5 or 6 chapters, depending on where you're looking at it. Um, were things that were popular sayings during the time of Jesus, if not extant in their present form. I mean, I believe they were extant in their present form during the time of Jesus, but not everybody would agree with that. Um, but they were these sayings are common enough sayings that they must have existed as popular sayings during the time of Jesus.
Okay. Yeah. So there is that whole thing, right? Like I was thinking about this actually. So, some people will, like, some people will talk about the Bible, and such, especially Christians, like the words of Jesus are like the most authoritative, right? And it does seem like there's something that is going on that's like when people read the Bible, right? They like Jewish people, like they'll read it with like some commentator like Rashi or whatever, right?
Right.
And it seems like there's a similar thing going on with like Jesus, that like suddenly you can if the, I swear to God, if that little bit of the Bible where there's a story with Jesus and the adulterous woman, like if that wasn't there, like we would be doing things very differently, right? We'd be reading this very very differently.
Funny
Uh,
thing about that Johannine comma, of course, is that it's not actually part of your Bible.
so this is debatable, because I know that some people think that
No,
this
nobody
is
debates it.
a lot of people think it's an interpolation. I know, but
Lots of people.
yeah, but right,
It's
it's there.
obviously an interpolation from like hundreds of years after
Sure,
it was
but
written.
it's there. Like
It's
like I
there
know that this is
now.
this is so like okay. So if you have this idea that everything is there is because of like it was literally at Mount Sinai, or that literally some guy wrote it in there who was like
Okay, yes,
who was a
this is the
witness, whatever.
King James Version only argument, which actually has a lot more going for it than most people will admit. And I can make the argument far better than the vast majority of King James Version only people. But ultimately, I think has to bow to propositional reality.
Propositional reality is that it's there. Propositional reality is that it's it the that Bible is like in hotel rooms all over the world. Like
Okay,
outfitted in the hotel rooms
it's
all over
you
the
know
world,
what?
right?
Okay, it's a lot more complicated. I don't want to get into this debate right now
Okay,
because I want to talk um, about Talmud.
okay,
So,
sure, let's
uh,
go.
Talmud, as opposed to the Talmud,
Hmm.
um, and when we say the Talmud, we generally mean the Babylonian Talmud, as opposed to the Jerusalem Talmud, which is an earlier Talmud.
Hmm.
Um, Talmud itself means study,
Hmm.
and it is a hermeneutic, a way of studying the scriptures, which um, obviously first of all was the Pharisaic way of doing it.
Hmm.
Second, um, obviously existed before the Talmud or even the Mishnah, actually. And I would say, quite obviously, personally, I would say, existed during the time of Jesus because somebody who knows Talmud recognizes how Talmudic Jesus is as opposed to Paul.
So, do you think so? When you say it's Talmudic, that it's like a style?
Yeah. And it's a
What?
style which you will recognize if you read the Mishnah Avot, you will like I went finally reading Jesus as opposed to listening to Christians, reading Jesus himself and trying to discover the historical Jesus.
Mhm.
What I see is somebody deeply steeped in Judaism that was then translated into Greek and Christianity. Whereas Paul is native to Greek and Christianity and at best flounders with Talmud. And um, I am not the first person to say this. I am not the second person to say this. Many, many, many people. I would say at the very least, Chaim Maccabee may be the most famous early person to say this before I was born.
Mhm.
And Yosef, I was very glad to have Yosef around as somebody who sees the exact same thing I do. And I think anybody steeped in Talmud who actually genuinely looks at the Christian Bible, genuinely looks at it, sees Jesus as being somebody who is Talmudic, whereas
Mhm.
Paul very obviously is not. And I have much earlier sources than Chaim Maccabee who said
Mhm.
similar things. Orthodox Jews who said similar things.
Okay. So what is the style? Is it like the most obvious thing people usually notice is like the parables? Is it a style made of parables? Is it
The
what's?
parables, not so much. I would say if you read the Gospel of Thomas,
Mhm.
although I would say at least the very last paragraph is obviously a later addition.
Mhm.
The Gospel of Thomas, I actually personally believe is the earliest actual gospel.
Gospel of Thomas is the one, huh? What's going on with the Gospel of Thomas? It's the secret sayings. Oh, this is interesting.
You've
Hmm.
never heard of the Gospel of Thomas before?
I've heard of it, but like I heard of
It's
it
very short.
as like as like this is all like there's a word for this Gnostic. Like they have this.
Yeah. So, yeah, a lot of people will call it the Gnostic Gospel of Thomas.
Mhm.
Um, the reason most Christians will ignore it is because like 80% of it is just things that are in the synoptic gospels.
Oh, wait, is this like Q? You think this is a sort of like Q
I
like
actually
document?
think it is far more Q like than a lot of people would like to admit.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So
Um, yeah,
so it's a book of like wise sayings, and this is the sort of thing you find in the Talmud. Is
in the
like
Mishnah.
in the Mishnah. Okay,
Yeah.
you're okay, but you're saying that basically that he's Talmudic. So in the Mishnah, you'd have a lot of wise sayings that like condense things in the Torah
Okay.
or whatever.
So let me explain.
Sure.
Talmud is the method.
Oh, okay.
The Talmud is a recording of people arguing in the Talmudic method about the Mishnah.
Okay.
And the Mishnah is a mnemonic poem composed to um, preserve the essence of the oral teachings that were not in the scripture themselves,
Hmm.
that Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, Judah the Prince, lived about 150 years after Jesus, um, thought was being forgotten. And I personally am of the opinion that the Gospels and the records we have of Christianity and Jesus are, in fact, the best proof, although I haven't studied the Dead Sea Scrolls, what's called the sectarian scrolls, and Josephus enough. Um, but for Christians, and since I'm usually saying this to Christians, it's it's the best proof that actually Jesus was deeply steeped in um, that which the Mishnah tries to preserve. And the earliest parts of the Mishnah is the Mishnah Avot, what's called Pirkei Avot, the chapters of the fathers. Um, and I think when you read through the Mishnah Avot, you clearly see Jesus paralleling what I would say is actually precedes him. One of the sayings, which is how we got into all of this, is I forget who the name of the rabbi was, um, but he was actually martyred by. He was one. He is one of the 10 martyrs. He's one of the people who was put to death by the Romans, um, and the saying is, "Pray for the peace of the government, for without it, men would swallow each other whole." He
Yeah.
was saying this under Roman occupation
Hmm.
and was later put to death by the Romans.
So it's interesting because the piece ended. It did not go so well. Uh, so yeah, the priest is a good thing to pray for. Um, that's a
No,
little
no,
bit
no.
different.
Hold on. Shalom Malchut, peace of the government doesn't mean what you think it means. When in Hebrew, when you ask about someone's peace, you ask about their health.
Okay,
So could be translated, pray for the health of the government.
that's still true. That still seems reasonable to me. You want the government to be healthy so that it's not.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And this was so it's yeah. I have like the again. I find Jesus to be completely Pharisaic. That's not the same thing as do precisely what the government says. And that's actually what gets me so mad about how Bridges of Meaning dealt with what was going on in Germany 2 weeks ago now,
Hmm.
3 weeks ago now.
Was it? Was it? Did it have anything to do with the government at all? It was like,
No.
yeah, it looked like My
Oh
understanding
no,
of
no, no,
what,
the government was not involved at all.
yeah, yeah. My understanding of what happened was that the British meeting tried to get a space. They were getting the space. Some jerks were like, "Hey, man, these are really Nazis or whatever." They were like,
Hmm.
instead of us going like, "No, we're not Nazis," we were like, "Okay, this guy said something weird. Okay, we'll take him off. Now we're not Nazis. We promise." And
Eh,
this looks very bad.
it
Yeah.
was more okay. I have to be more fair
Hmm.
to the people who were involved in this on Bridges of Meaning. They handled it precisely as normies would and think they should, which is they were actually using a space being allowed to them by a Christian community. There and yes, and what happened was the week before the event, people came to them with a list of a bunch of concerns that they had. These concerns included problems they had with Burn Power, who is the Anadromist, and that's why this thing is called First They Came for the Anadromist. Um, Concerns they had about Chad's channel, concerns, I don't know what precisely the concerns were. Apparently, there's a video of a discussion that Paul had with Cassidy, which I have not seen. The discussion was held behind closed doors where the Bridges of Meaning people tried very nicely to have a discussion with the people who were providing this space about their concerns, tried to assuage their concerns, and explain no, we're not actually Nazis. People might, that, whatever Chad has to say, Chad the alcoholic on Bridges of Meaning channel, like, that's an independent channel, that's not necessarily us. Um, and that they're not going to in any way censor Burn, but the members of the church decided that they were no longer going to actively participate in the conference.
Yeah. Is that all they said? They didn't like charge us more money, or what was going on? What?
No, no, no.
Okay, but we just now look a little bit more separate than them. They were like, "Oh, you're just church buddies or whatever."
More like,
Now
yeah,
we're
we're not gonna speak at this. We're not gonna, this is not something that's necessarily all sponsored by us. Even though, as far as I know, like, they still let us have the space for free. Um, they were a bit standoffish. Maybe a fewer people actually attended. It
it's
it it was very it was what a normal person and normie would consider a victory.
it's interesting because it's almost like karmic. Like, what happened? What we did, what British meeting did to Chad, they did to us. Like it's exactly balanced in this
Th-
very strange way.
that's it. Oh, it is precisely so. This is precisely the type of tactics that the woke have used for many many years to slowly, like, ma- move things their way in the perfect manner in which they make these things happen.
Yeah, it sucks because they didn't really accomplish anything like good or
Oh,
bad.
no, 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 no.
But
You are completely wrong. They have accomplished a lot.
maybe they accomplished. So to me, like what happens is that though, like we could have come together and been like a superorganism, and now we can't be, which like sucks.
See, this is the thing. The proper response, which nobody who hasn't been as involved in what's been going on for years here
Hmm.
and has not actually been studying this and actually been anti woke I would ever expect such a person to know. Like,
Yeah.
I don't blame the people on the ground. I'm not even going to name them because I don't blame them.
Hmm.
I blame Paul Vanderklay.
You you think he should have known better?
He should have known better. Not only should he have known better, the whole reason I am part of this community is because I want to be part of a community that knows better.
Oh man, you're. I don't know if there's anyone who knows better that's not like pretty weird, to be honest with you.
Okay, but that's this community.
I don't know, man. I think
The
Paul is like a
proper
little too normal.
response the proper response should have been, excuse me, you made a commitment, this is the week of, and these horrible people are accusing us of horrible things. Our members are still are already like traveling internationally to come here, and you want me to defend against accusations of somebody who went
Yeah.
internet mining for how long before they came and brought up these accusations? And the proper response is righteous indignation and fury that anybody would have the gall the week of an event to even bring this stuff up. And the response should have been, excuse me, you're accusing me of being a Nazi. You're accusing me of being a fascist. Like, how dare you? Why did you agree to this if you thought I might be a fascist? Do you not know us at all? Do you not realize Paul Vanderklay is one of the leaders of the Christian Reformed Church in America? Like, do you have no idea who Paul Vanderklay is? And of course, they didn't attack Paul Vanderklay. They attacked Byrne. And this was part of the argument that I started having on Bridges of Meaning. Is like, people were like, oh, they had concerns about Byrne Power. And it's like, have you seen Byrne's channel? Do you know how small Byrne's channel is? He has, what, 4,000? Like, I love Byrne. Hopefully he'll be coming on my channel soon. I'm waiting until after this stuff. I actually asked him before. I asked him a while back if he would come, and he said yes. But because of everything that happened, I'm gonna wait a little bit. I'm not sure how long I'm gonna wait. But having Byrne on my channel last time was great. It's still one of the most popular videos I've had. I want him back. Um, I'm just waiting until after Thunder Bay so I can talk to Paul and like maybe I I haven't talked to Paul because I don't want to blow up at him and I don't want to make life difficult for him, but I am incredibly disappointed in him. Um but so they attacked Byrne, and and the inversion that I had to discuss in general in on Bridges of Meaning, and it's still there if you want to go look at it, is people were like, oh, these people had concerns about Chad and about Byrne, and that's why they came and talked to us. And it was like, no, you're pretending they're honest actors. They didn't have concerns about Chad and Byrne. They were attacking Paul Vanderklay, and they were using Chad and Byrne as excuses, as ways of attacking Paul Vanderklay.
So it seems like this. So I'm thinking about this. Okay. So the thing about responding with righteous indignation, I think it's probably a good like realpolitik response, but like, is it the right response?
Yes.
And
Yes.
so
Yes.
maybe.
If you're honest about it, and you should be honest about it, and you should be indignant when somebody accuses you of being a fascist.
I mean, without a good reason. Like, oh, I found a video from like 5 years ago. I took out 5
I
seconds.
found a video that Chad the alcoholic put on YouTube. Like,
Yeah,
excuse me?
yeah.
the week of a conference that, like, Paul is already on, like, he was already, I believe, in Europe or on his way. Like, excuse me,
So, do you know why? Do you know why they were after? Or were they just
Paul?
jerks? Yeah. Why did they not want
No,
Paul?
it's because of the decision that the CRC Synod. So this is the thing. It's like, I've been
Oh,
warning Paul for months that an attack like this is going to come.
you think this is the Alphabet Squad? Okay.
Of
Um.
course it is. Who else would it be?
Okay. That I don't know. I don't think conspiratorially enough for that to occur to me, but I can
I
see
have
it.
been
It's not an
I
impossible thing.
have been warning Paul and the community for months that this attack is coming.
Okay. No, it makes sense. It makes sense. It's predictable in some ways.
Why do you think somebody spent hours and hours going through Chad the Alcoholic's videos?
Yeah, he has
Do you
like
know how
50
many?
followers or something. Yeah,
What?
he has like 50 like subscribers or something. Like,
No, it's closer to 250, but it's not huge.
yeah.
Even my channel is not huge.
Hmm.
Burns' channel is not huge. Burn has what? Here, let me look up Burns. Let me see how many things Burn has. Anadromists.
Yeah, I'm not even sure who Burn is, man. I watch what is it? Friday Night Nameless channel sometimes. It's pretty good. But
Burn has 2.09k subscribers according to whatchamacallit. Do you really think? Do you really think somebody went through and how many hours of he has? I should actually probably watch his report from Landau. His videos are hours and hours and hours long, right?
Mhm.
His most popular video was Pajot on there, almost 10,000 views. Um, like, Burns' channel has 146,000 views total. Total,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
They didn't have problems with Byrne. They had problems with Paul Vanderklay. They attacked Byrne.
Okay. I never man, cause okay. No, that fits a little too well. I
What
don't think
fits a little too well?
the Alphabet Squad came and because of the CRC Senate thing. I could see it definitely. Um. Uh. So you think this? It's probably
Maybe it's not the synod thing. Maybe it's Paul's association with Jordan Peterson.
okay.
Whatever it is,
Yeah.
that event got attacked because of Paul, not because of Byrne,
That makes
not because of Chad. And this is what you have to realize is, hello, they're attacking us as a group.
Yeah.
They're not, and if you let
That
them
seems like
pick up, like, this is
I mean, no, that seems like the right response to me. Is like, I'm the shepherd. These are my sheep. Mess with my sheep. Screw you. Like that seems like the thing to do.
you want to read it or should I?
Go. Oh, you should read this. You're the. Come on, go for it.
But no, it's not about being a Jew.
Okay, fine. Fine. I'll read the thing. All right. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me. You might be able to pronounce this.
Martin Niemöller.
Niemöller. Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, this is how they do it. They pick off. They destroy your community. They use relational aggression They take they're not
I
going to
think you're right.
attack you where you are strongest. They are going to attack you where you are weakest.
Well, I mean, I think you're right. Yeah, he's literally a pastor. He should be protecting the flock. That's what he should be doing.
Yep.
Yeah, I can see why you're mad. That makes sense. Wow. Do you know what to do about it? I don't know what you do about it when you. Is this? Do you just take complaints to the pastor? Is this what you do?
Um, I mean, I'm going to complain to him. I don't know where it's going to get us. Um, if this community is not capable of fighting this fight, I'm going to have to find a community that is. I thought this community was able and willing to fight this fight. And that's why I sank everything I could into it. That's but if I'm wasting my time, I'm wasting my time. And if it's going to become a question of Jacob the Jew is being silly, like some people who are my good friends told me I was being silly, and that my comparisons to the Holocaust are ridiculous and get out of here with those, like some people who are my friends told me, then I guess I have to get out of here and go find some place where I am not considered so silly.
I see why they'd be like, Godwin's law, go away, right? But I don't. I think you're right that they're trying to attack the organism, and like that's what the shepherd's for. If the shepherd is supposed to protect the sheep, he's his job. He should be doing this. I agree. You're not crazy. This is literally his job. He's the designated guy to stand up, and he's not standing up. He should be doing it.
Well, I'm glad I convinced you. I
You
don't
did
know
convince me.
how far that's
I
gonna
had to think
go.
about it a little bit, because yeah, no, that's his job. He's supposed to be doing this. It is literally his job. Um, did anyone? Because that just occurred to me as you were saying it. Is like, no, okay, this literally that's what he's supposed to be doing. He's not doing it, and someone should say that to him.
And the reason I spent so much time reading the Dietrich Bonhoeffer thing is um, I don't want somebody being like, no, the Christian thing to do is to admit you're wrong, and and it's like,
Well, if you're wrong,
mm, well, eh, you know what? If before they signed up they had problems, okay. If they wanted to bring things up after the conference, like I think we should and we need to, and we need to demand an apology from them. And if they will not give us an apology, actually condemn them, then because that's the way you do it is actually, but like the week of, when people were already traveling and like, no, that's no, that's, and I don't blame the people who were involved at the time individually. This community I thought was stronger than this, understood what was going on better than this, was better capable of actually dealing with this, and I'm not letting this go. I mean, if this is how this community is going to act in this type of situation, then it's not a community I will be a member of.
I can see that. I was thinking the same thing. Like if people are going to retract their name from you so fast, right? If like, and if literally it's your job to stand up for people. Literally, it's your job to shepherd the sheep, and you like will like immediately back away from anyone the moment they're attacked. Like that's bad. That's really really bad. Um, I just don't know what the alternative is. I don't know what like the okay, who's the good shepherd in this scenario? Where do I go?
I'm not sure. Look, I don't know exactly what happened to my satisfaction, and part of the problem is that the people who are trying to apologize to me, um, they just don't get it. They are making, and by apologize I don't mean saying so I'm sorry, as in trying to clarify. All they do is make the situation worse because they just prove to me that they don't realize the gravity of the situation, the importance of it, that we are involved in a Kulturkampf. And the more I talk to people, and I have been trying to talk to people, the more evident it becomes they they don't see that we are in a Kulturkampf, um, which is, I am using the German word for culture war for a very specific reason. That is what Kulturkampf means, culture
Yeah, the
war.
culture struggle.
Yeah. Um, the and that's where the term culture war comes from. Actually, like the fact that the people I'm talking to don't realize the importance, and like um, Paul's son Jared was like, it's completely inappropriate for you to use the name of my murdered relatives um, in this way. And I'm like, no, Jared, actually, it's not. And if you want me to talk to you about the Holocaust, I will. But no. And this is the thing. It's like, hey, you like, is anything more emblematic of this community than the Jordan Peterson, Kathy Newman interview? And it feels like that segment. I almost looked it up to play in this video. Is is there anything more emblematic than Kathy Newman saying to Jordan Peterson, "You're just saying these things to provoke people. You don't actually mean, like, there's no comparison between the trans activists you claim to be standing against and Chairman Mao." Or she mentioned Augusto Pinochet. Won't get into that, but Chairman Mao, and he's like, "Yeah, there is, and I'm making that connection." And what I keep on telling people is, if you don't think that Jordan Peterson was, and there's plenty of people in this community who are like, no, Jordan Peterson was crazy about that part. Like, they like Jordan Peterson for everything else. They don't like Jordan Peterson for that part. And it's like, the people who are here for Jordan Peterson for that part, they get it. But that's possibly less than half of this community. And if we're a real community, then the community should understand that. And more, and this was Lance's point, he thinks that the moderators don't get that point. I don't think that's the problem. I think part of the problem is Paul as leader. Like, Joey got it. Joey understood, and if Joey was involved, like, Joey would have stood up to this the way I think he needed to. And frankly, I think that was timed as well. I think they, whoever they are, have been watching this community, and they know Joey left. The problem here is a lack of leadership.
Yes, that is 100% correct. Who is Joey? What was going on with Joey?
So Chris says, I'm about 12 minutes behind, but yes, Paul should have seen this coming. Yes, he should have been indignant. And yes, it was probably the alphabet people. And Chris, you could actually click on that link, you know. Joey Antonazzi was the person who ran the Bridges of Meaning server um, like a leader could, should, would if they were competent. Unfortunately for us, a Joey is still an atheist and doesn't actually care about religion at all. Really, like that's not why he's involved, but that's why he understands the culture war stuff.
Mm-hmm.
B, he is incredibly competent, and somebody of his competence spending as much time administering our Bridges of Meaning server is way beyond our resources. We could never afford to pay him to do the job that he was doing. And he was doing it in his off time for personal reasons, for meaning, for all kinds of things. But all of those things meant when he got a serious job offer that was actually paying him to do the type of work he is capable of, he's Chris says Paul denied Pope Chad's name 3 times. No, I mean, frankly, I was even more livid when I found out that the complaints were about. No, I was actually most livid that people were trying to say the problem they had problems with Chad and Byrne, and it's like, I love Byrne, but he has 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah. The thing is, it's the opposite. So the sheep scatter when Jesus dies. That makes sense. The If Jesus had denied Paul 3 times, that would have been really bad, and that seems to be what happened. This is
Yeah. Well, it was Peter. Jesus never met Paul, and in
yeah, I know.
fact, I think Jesus did deny Paul many, many times, all over the book of Matthew. But that's a whole other story.
Yeah. So this is how you connect it. Um, how does this work out with no, like you at least have to protect people in your church, at least have to protect people in your group. Quietism isn't good at like if it was just you and your taxes, I guess you should pay your taxes. If it's you and all of your relatives and you're like, yeah, you just need to go die on a cross, I don't think that's a good thing to say. Um, oh, jeez. Was this all you wanted to say, or was there more to this?
Um, well, part of having actual human beings to talk to is I don't know what I need to be ranting about. And like part of the problem is understanding that there's a communication problem and there's a huge communication problem, which is why we need discussions.
Yeah.
And it's impossible for me to realize what exactly what exactly people are missing without having a discussion with them. Like, and a lot of the people are just too busy to have this type of discussion, and they also don't trust me enough to just outsource their cognition to me. So I need people to either trust me enough to outsource their cognition to me, or discuss this with me enough to actually figure out what's going on. Whereas the response I'm getting is, you're a Jew, you're being silly, you're a culture warrior, um,
Well,
Christians can't, like, all kinds of people. Sorry, there's an ambulance going by.
yeah.
Um, all kinds of people who are, the community thing isn't going on, and I understand Paul is too busy for me to dig into him. I He hasn't contacted me, and I'm not going to contact him right before Thunder Bay while he has to, like, get involved with all this stuff.
Mhm.
But unlike most people, I try to have a memory, and things that are important to me right now are important to me in a week, in a month, in several months.
Mhm.
And so um, this has also been part of the reason why I'm not making a huge deal about it, because this is something that's important to me um, long term, and why I'm not just going to sit on Bridges of Meaning quietly and talk about other things, while at the same time, um, I'm not gonna I'm not going to like allow it to become about me. Like as soon as it started becoming about me again, it was like, okay, this is not about me. If it's about me, if it's me being a troublemaker, I'll just leave. That's if this is the community that I'm going to be a troublemaker in. I don't want to, because I have better communities to be troublemakers in. Like the reason we don't care if you're in bed. You don't have to turn on your thing if you don't want to. If you can't see the spiritual significance of stripping Pope Chad of his BOM affiliation, taking his name and banishing him to the desert, then you are blasphemous. I wouldn't say blasphemous, but I think you're certainly not. You are certainly not seeing the your role in the flock. But what I was saying about, like, I there are lots and lots of communities in which I have been part of, and I've been like the prophet, like Jonah screaming about, you guys need to repent. I'm not going to do that. That's certainly not, like, if I wanted to do that, that's not what I would be in Bridges of Meaning or in the communities I'm a part of. I'm trying to find people to be a part of, to support people who already agree with me. So if you're going to disagree with me, I have better people to disagree with in this regard. I have other things. I'll disagree with you about other things all you want, but that's because it's not foundational rules of the game type thing. I keep on talking about the Marquis of Queensberry rules. You know what those are? They're the rules of boxing.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm willing to box with people who want to box if we're playing by the same rules. I am not going to, and that's why I've left the other communities, is because they are no longer boxing by the rules that I want to box with. And I want to be part of a league where people box with, we have disagreements with the same rules that I think are fair rules. If the communities, if Bridges of Meaning is not going to be that community, is not going to be the community I want to be a member of, then I'm just going to leave.
Yeah. I'm trying to think. So, okay. So, again, bringing up the Holocaust stuff, for a lot of people, they're just going to go, God wants law, ha ha ha. Unfortunately, it's been ruined by the internet.
Look, I understand that. But at the same time, the reason I have for 20 some years, and if you want to go, this is what pisses me off actually. So my Daily Trojan articles used to be available on the archive easily for you to find. When I was at USC in 1996, I want to say, writing articles about why you shouldn't go around calling people Nazis. You should still be able to find those articles on the Daily Trojan archives. I had difficulty finding them, but the reason why I have been making that argument all over the place, and I continue to make it all over the place when people bring up the Holocaust without good reason, is because I want to be able to cry wolf. And
Yeah.
this is me crying wolf. And if you're
Yeah.
not going to listen to, if you think I am such an unserious person that I would bring up the Holocaust unseriously, then I'm sorry, I have nothing to say to you.
Yeah. But I mean, I agree that like if your group is gonna like not defend you at all, is not even gonna be like no, we're not associated with him, like so fast, then they're not a good group. And
At least recognize that Byrne and Chad were not. It's not that our group was being attacked because of Byrne and Chad.
yeah,
Our group was being attacked by attacking Byrne and Chad. And
right,
if you're going to allow people to pick off your allies like that,
yeah,
you, you
I agree. They're attacking. It's not they're not it's not like they're attacking some other guy who we don't like or whatever. They're attacking our legs. They're attacking our feet. They're attacking our tail. Why do we let people do this? Like it's not good.
yep.
And I'm sorry no one has gotten it. I didn't even get it until we were talking about it. I had to think about it while you were talking about it. I was like, oh wait, no, you're totally right.
Well,
Like,
that's why I'm doing this video.
yeah,
And that's why I want people to come on and talk to me about it. The problem is, um, too many people. Well, did Job leave the server already?
I don't know. I don't know what's going on with Job. So
Job, um,
I know he
Job
was
is
arguing with you, but that's all I know.
he was and he wasn't. I think he gets it better. He's. I think he understands. Job is leaving um, because he's going to be an elder of his church, and he's like, okay, real life things over this server stuff. He refused to take over when Joey left. Um, Joey left. Um, Two other people, I'm not going to name them, are like taking breaks from Discord. A lot of people think this is just internet drama, and maybe it is, and maybe I need to focus on Los Angeles more, and maybe I will.
Hmm.
Um, Ultimately, if this is what Bridges of Meaning is going to um, CW, another person. Yes, I know he left for unrelated reasons. I don't know how temporary it's going to be, CW. But another person who should be clicking on the link and coming on CW. Um, but if if it's just going to be me, if it's like, then you know what? I have my server. If you don't agree with me, like I what I am certainly not going to be is the person that people disagree with. That's just, it's like I have better things to do.
And again, what you're disagreeing on is like be loyal to your in group, like, or at least don't put them under the bus. You don't have to throw them under the bus. That's all. Like this
And
is
that's
really
the thing. Like a lot of people are like, "Oh, they didn't come for our pope." See, that's the thing, Chris. They didn't come for our pope, and they would never come for our pope. They are never going to attack Paul Vanderklay directly. That's not how these terrorists. That's not how you do guerrilla warfare. That's not how you do relational aggression. You don't directly um, address this stuff.
and the problem is if you understood, like you should know this is your legs. This is the other. This isn't another person. This is literally you. This is just a way of attacking you. Um,
This is just a way of attack. Right. This was just a way of attacking Paul Vanderklay, and they
yeah.
didn't realize it. And if like I really do want to see the video that Paul had discussing what was going on with uh, um, the one person. but it's like, but apparently, and that's another thing. It's like our community isn't even discussing it.
Yeah.
Like, and I found out about it later. Chris is like Paul Vanderklay is not the Pope. Um, well, yeah, he's incredibly Protestant, and our community is very Protestant. But and Father Eric, to some extent, he's like, Discord is Protestant, and he's to some extent right. But like, what's the alternative? I'm not joining the Catholic Church.
We could have the rightful caliph. If we wanted to, I guess.
Yeah, the rightful caliph. Yes. I mean, honestly, maybe the correct thing is in fact like that that Muslim group. Maybe it's the LDS group. Maybe it's I don't know where I'm going to go from here. But um, if this is how this community acts, then um, I'm going to cut my losses earlier rather than later.
And this is the problem because this is exactly what they would. This is predictable, right? Again, they attack this guy. These guys are tracked. Other people leave because they think they're not well defended. Like the reason to stay is to not let them win. But if they've already won, like what are you gonna do? I
And that is exactly my point. That is exactly my point. I retreated to Bridges of Meaning from Eric Weinstein's server because I saw Eric Weinstein could not maintain a community, and he couldn't. And I thought Paul Vanderklay could. And I'm hoping, and and that's part of the reason when I came back, I was like, you know what? If we do this correctly, we'll be a stronger community. And the correct thing, and I still believe the correct thing, is for us to learn our lesson, to resolve that we're not going to do it again, to go back to that community center, demand that they recognize what they did wrong and that they don't do it again, and number three, get a public denunciation of violent extremism from them, because that will be a public win for us. And we can actually say, unlike what people have been saying, and people have been saying to me, oh, they attacked us but we won, and it's like, no, they attacked us and we lost. And I want to turn this into a victory. And if we get a public denunciation from that community center of left wing, of violent extremism, all I want is an apology to us, which includes a condemnation of violent extremism. That would actually turn this into a learning opportunity for us, and our community would come through it stronger than it was. But without those things, I'm gone. I have. I don't know if I have better things to do, but I'm at least not going to waste my resources on something like this.
yeah, man. Um, I don't know how. And you're literally just looking for the right. We're looking for the right pope. Is this what we're doing? We're looking for a
I
good
have,
shepherd.
yeah, I mean, I have, in fact, well, part of the problem is, look, I think, for example, Peter Thiel understands what's going on and he's fighting it well. The problem is I have no way of actually supporting him. I think Jordan Peterson mostly understands what's going on, and is reacting well. I have no way of really supporting him beyond what I am doing. And part of the problem is the Jethro problem, right? You need a hierarchy that comes all the way down to people like me. And the hierarchies that are actually powerfully and competently fighting this war they're not able to build communities that come all the way down. James Lindsay, Vocal Distance. I mean, I could name a lot of people who I think understand what's going on. I thought Paul Vanderklay both understood what's going on and knew how to build a community to fight against it, and I was trying to help him as best as I could. But this is a manifest failure. Chris says the reason Paul capitulated is the same reason he doesn't want Peterson on the Daily Wire. Paul is a postmodernist at the end of the day. I don't think he's a postmodernist. I think he unfortunately spends too much time triangulating because he thinks that Jesus, the way Jesus fought his culture war of his time was by fighting everyone. And so he wants to make everybody unhappy. And it's like, no, like Paul, I mean, Jesus at the very least, and this is the thing, like, I think Paul misunderstands, as much as critical as Jesus was of his disciples, he still had disciples. Watch episode 1 of my Speaking Against Evil series. I would like to say I will. I may in fact look it up, but honestly, we put out so much content in this corner of the internet. There's just too much content for me to keep up with, and that's part of the reason why I've been having as many conversations and have been trying to have conversations as opposed to just me ranting.
I'm trying to think about. So, how does triangulation fit into this exactly?
Okay, so most people do not actually think about things. They find, especially things that they don't. Okay, most people don't think about anything. Some people think about some things. Mm. But even those people only think about things that they have some familiarity with, believe are really important, and have the time to think about. Because like your conscious mind, right, has so much, like, it takes so much brain power to actually put your attention to something consciously, right, that 80% of your brain is unconscious. Okay?
Right. Yeah. Well, you need to focus on something, and your focus needs to be in a field. And, right, this is the overton window, and you mostly pick a spot in the overton window.
Exactly. Right? And part of what you do with the overton window is pick what anchors, right? Mm-hmm. Pick people. Okay, so Jacob seems to know what he's talking about Judaism, and Yosef seems to know what he's talking about Judaism. When Jacob and Yosef discuss Judaism, right? Then, and they're disagreeing about things, I see where the landscape of disagreement is, right? And the things that both of them completely agree on, like, and don't even think about while they're agreeing on it, must be things everybody who's intelligent on this subject agrees on. Okay?
Right.
So I call that triangulation, right? You look at what the experts are saying, right? You look at Fox News, you look at MSNBC, and the stuff that Fox News and MSNBC don't disagree about, that's what you assume to be true.
That's a terrible strategy.
It is okay. The strategy everybody uses all of the time.
It's the strategy everybody uses all the time. But, like, if you want to come up with a new idea, you do the opposite, right? That's like Peter Thiel's whole 0 to 1 thing is that, right? It's like...
I have not actually read that book. I want to.
Okay.
I guess I should.
There are so many books that everybody should read that nobody reads. It's too bad.
Yeah. Okay. I'll if it's only 10 minutes long, I'll take a look. But yeah, I mean, and honestly, if you're picking good sources of cognition,
Hmm.
It's not actually that bad of a strategy. It's actually a very good
No.
strategy. What what the experts, and especially if you get experts that genuinely disagree, and
Hmm.
this is why you need at least two political parties. That's why you need to balance, to have counter, you need different opinions, right? A
Hmm.
diversity of opinions that actually matters and is good is when you get these people disagreeing, what they absolutely all agree on, that's what you can know for sure. And then you can be like, oh, I agree with this guy more on this one particular thing, but part of the psychotechnologies that have been developed in the past 100 years is recognizing that people do this and recognizing that if you pick the experts correctly and have them disagree on the right things,
Hmm.
people will assume that the assumptions are all true and
Yeah.
not even recognize that they're assuming those assumptions are true.
So yes, I would agree with you that the experts have been hacked. That has happened.
Yes.
Um,
Our distributed cognition has been hacked. Yes.
um, okay. So distributed foundation's been hacked. Somehow this feeds into triangulation. You're triangulation with like again like I don't need triangulation to know that I should be like good to my friends, right? Like being good to my friends and bad to my enemies is like this is like primate level like cognition, right?
But who are your friends? Are random people on the internet your friends?
Are random people I Chad the alcoholic is big in my community, right? Isn't
He's
he well
big in
liked
your
and well respected?
community, but is he your friend?
I would say that so there's this idea about community that is not the greatest idea, but it's an idea, and I don't think it's nonsense. And Jesus says a little bit about this when he says, "People who are not against you are for you," which is that like, oh I'm enemies with my brother sometimes, but when my family is enemies with someone, I'm friends with my brother, and I'm against them. I'm against that other family. And when people are against my city, oh, I'm friends with everybody in my city, and then enemies with them, even though if I'm fighting with my family. And then when my country gets attacked, I'm friends with my the other city, even when I'm enemies with the city sometimes, right? And so, in the same sense, yes, I should be friends with my community over some stranger most of the time. That's a good idea. Yes.
Well, I think part of the problem includes the fact that a lot of those people who were in Germany
Hmm.
going to that community center saw that community center, and we saw this like in Bridges of Meaning. I don't know if you saw the guy from Germany who's like, you guys have these problems in the United States, we don't have these problems here in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Did you see my response?
I did not see that. I
My response was, yeah, you guys are so much more civilized in Europe. Good thing nothing like the Holocaust could ever happen in Europe.
yeah. Yep. Uh, yeah. What do you think is so the problem is what did he say the problem was? Is that we couldn't defend
Who?
our friend or what? He's
Who?
saying you have these problems in the States, but we don't have these
Oh, no,
problems
no,
in
no,
the
no.
country.
He meant because what I was saying was we needed to take a more aggressive stance against the community center. And he's like, no, you guys fight too much. They, there's a lot of people, especially I think those people in Germany, who saw the community center not as an enemy, but more of a friend than Byrne and Chad, which is part of the reason. Let's face it,
That's
they
wrong.
chose.
That's clearly wrong.
Ugh, the part of the reason they chose Chad the alcoholic was because, well, Chad A is an alcoholic, and there's a lot of Christians who are like, oh, he's an alcoholic. Chad is a comedian. Chad wears a mask. Chad was an easy person to attack.
Chad's a sober alcoholic, so
He
in
is,
fact
and
he
he's
is.
a Christian, but he's not. He's not the. He doesn't signal the Christianity everybody else does, and No, no, no. These people are incredibly good at relational aggression. If you want to pick like the comedian like is the perfect person, and that's why they go after the comedians.
Whatever you have done to the least of these, you have done to me. This is exactly what you're getting at. Yeah. No, see, I didn't realize that when you put out the other video. I was like, I don't know what he's getting at. No, I get it. Yeah, yeah, that's really bad. And again, the only reason, and this is the thing I get every time I see when people attack this. This is about power. This is like we wanted this place. This power was more important to us than defending our friends. This is really bad.
Eh, I I first of all, I think a lot of them were like, well, there's all kinds of rationalizations you do when you're in a situation like that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Pope Chad is the stone that the builders rejected. Um, there, look, they picked a very good time to do something like this. People were already traveling. There was and they know how to do it. These are practiced people who have done this many, many times. And they're like, oh, it's not like they came to our organizers and said, hey, burn power, you shouldn't have him as a speaker, because of course that's not going to work. They went to the community center and they're like, hey, these people are inviting people like Burn Power. And of course the community center is not going to think you're complaining about one of the speakers who has 2,000 subscribers. 2,000 subscribers.
Yeah.
And it's like Paul Vanderklay himself, what, he has 20,000 subscribers?
Yeah. I don't know. Like, well, he was going to speak at the event, right? He wasn't like just.
Burn was speaking at the event, yeah. He
wasn't like literally just a guy. That said, like, he's your guy. You should defend him.
He's your guy. You should defend him. I agree with you. But the meeting was 50 people. The thing is, this is another thing a lot of people didn't understand. They're like, we're big enough for Antifa to care about, and it's like, oh, you have it completely wrong. You think Antifa is going to keep on attacking Jordan Peterson? Of course not. They can't attack Jordan Peterson because, A, Jordan Peterson knows better than to allow them, and B, a public attack like that is going to get attention. Guess what didn't get attention? This attack didn't get attention. And that's why they bully the small people. And this has been a tactic all the way back to the Nazis. They attack, and they didn't go after the rabbis.
Mm-hmm.
They went after the all the other Jews.
So I could sort of imagine like this hierarchy of people. I don't know. I'd have to use Nazi language to like really get at it, but you could imagine, right? Like
it's
some
the
people on the
spirit.
outside you could attack.
It's the spirit of Amalek. It is what Judaism identifies as the spirit of Amalek. When Amalek attacked Israel, they attacked from the behind. They attacked the old and the young and the weak.
Yeah.
And that is the spirit of Amalek, is you don't attack where people are strongest, you attack where they are weakest.
Mm-hmm. And the thing is, the answer to this seems to be like, oh, right, have like an ethos of loyalty where people like actually love each other and don't just talk about it.
Yeah, but you have to have a community where there are shepherds and there are guard dogs and there is... Look, we need to police our own. And I would have had zero problem if outside the context of this, they had went to Chad, hey, Chad, we're trying to keep a certain thing for bridges of meaning. We don't want anybody using bridges of meaning with the BOM tag without, and like actually had a policy that was,
Mhm.
but that's not what happened. And of course, that's not what happened because we were allowing these people who hate us to guide our attention.
Yeah. Oh man, that is scary. Yeah, no. Um, so about guiding our attention, you mean so like so I'm trying to think about how that works. So like I can understand like okay now you have SJW stuff in the CRC as a problem, uh, but that doesn't seem like what you're talking about. It seems like you're talking about something about them attacking this guy, and then and then now like we have to police like a brand name when we weren't doing this. We were just sort of being a community.
Right.
Um, That's tricky because part of what we're doing, right, all the time is our attention is responding to attacks, right? That's part of what we do. Uh, I don't know what you do about that. That
Well,
is a
that's so. This is
that's a
part of
complicated
the
problem.
reason why I think Claire Caw is. There's a reason I don't kick Claire off. There's a reason why I have the Mendacity channel.
Yeah.
Um, I think Claire. I think understanding how Claire, in fact, functions to guide attention. Like that's what she does. She guides attention by getting you to defend what she wants you to be defending in certain ways. Like so this idea of secular Coranism, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have two choices. You can attack secularity, you can attack Coranism. Either way she wins. Because what she's getting you to do is attacking things that she wants you to attack.
I remember her talking to me and I asked her a few questions, and I was like, I formulated a response, and it was like, but I was like having to like if I need to defend it more than like a Bible verse, it was like I have to like use like what I know about like Lacanian psychoanalysis. I'm like, this is too much work. I don't want to do this. Why are you doing
She,
this?
it's way too much work. It is. So, Chris, you're missing the point. It's not about whether or not Chad, like you're protecting Chad by saying Chad did nothing wrong. It doesn't even matter. If Chad was running a channel denying the Holocaust, and I kid you not, if Chad was running videos denying that the Holocaust happened, I would I would have defended him in that context of excuse me, we're having this conference. You're bringing me complaints about a random channel on YouTube? What? Like F off. Like as far as Chad was involved, it's like what are you saying? How dare you say it? Right? Um, what's egregious is that our community did not respond to this properly, and the only proper response, the only proper response to these complaints being brought up the week of the event was, excuse me? That is the only proper response.
I mean, I think there's a loving way to do that, but I do think it's like, this is my sheep, man. This is the least of these I'm supposed to protect, and you're like going out of your, they're going out of the way to attack him, and then you're gonna go along with that. That's not okay. It's really not.
Well, so it would have been a completely different thing if Paul was doing a conference with somebody who wasn't his longtime friend like Byrne,
Mm-hmm.
right? Somebody he had just met had come together and was like, hey, let's do a conference together. and then the week before it, the community center comes and says, "Hey, Paul, do you actually know this person you're inviting?" And Paul's reaction was, "Hold on, like, no, I don't." Burn, Burn's channel exists because of Paul.
Yeah.
Burn has a channel because of Paul.
Yeah. And it's like this is the outgrowth. This is actually like a seed that he planted. He should be like, yeah. Yeah. What? I don't like. I know that like this makes you upset, and you have in fact got me a little angry too. But
Mm.
I don't know what to say about it, and I don't know what to do about it. Like I'm like, oh wow, this community has some serious problems. I don't actually know what to do about them. Uh, I don't know what I would do about any group that had this problem. I don't know where I would go. Right? Where do I? If this group like won't defend me, who will? Right? This is I don't know. Like I feel like what we should be doing is formulating some sort of good response, and I don't know what it is.
I'm just checking because Knock is saying that he cannot. He's having trouble commenting. I'm just trying to see what's going on there. Um,
And and so your thought is that Vanderklay himself needs to respond in a strong way. The particular way you want this response to happen is that he needs to go and complain to the people who run the center that they need to go like apologize and make a strong statement against violent activist groups. Um, but like, how did this happen in the first place? How do we keep from happening? Seems like the salient thing, and and maybe you just have to make it like explicit who your allies are and who your enemies are. But I don't know.
yeah, Antonio is just saying he wishes he could join.
Is that what you do? Do you want Paul Vanderklay to make a list of friends who he's going to defend and a list of enemies who he's not going to defend? Is this what you
No,
want him to do?
no. Ultimately, I think it's a matter of him recognizing that. Ultimately, I think it's. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry about that, Knock. Okay. Um, Ultimately, I think it's a matter of Paul just recognizing that he is being attacked. That the reason for the attack is not um, somebody found Chad's channel and was like, right. These
Yeah.
people went searching for things to be offended by.
And you don't think he gets it. You don't think he gets that at all.
Obviously not. I mean, lots of people didn't get it. I
Okay.
think Jared didn't get it. I'm pretty sure Jared still doesn't get it.
Okay. Because it seems like you're right. That's the only way this could have happened. That is, in fact, 50 people showing up at a center in Germany. They're not Nazis. They're what? They're reformed. Oh God, I'm sorry, Calvinists, right? Like
Yeah,
uh, like it's. I don't even like it's obviously what it is, right?
yeah,
Um, and like at minimum they're trolls, and at worst it's like actually they're attacking the group for like some nefarious purpose. And I just no, you're right. He has to get it. Um,
Ben, there was an official posting which I um, which I have here, and the only thing I care about is just the first few sentences. So it's been a busy week for our coordination team, as last week the owner of the Schutzstern um, uh, community center contacted us saying activists from their community had sent them a list of complaints. These complaints criticized content from some of our festival speakers and channels connected to Bridges of Meaning, and it gave the event center concern in holding our event. We reviewed the list of complaints internally. That tells you they failed utterly. There is no review to be had here. The answer should have been flat out immediate no. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't want to make this about that one person that you named, because it's not about that one person that you named at all. But this statement, it 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 is the normie reaction to this type of situation, and I belong to this community because we are not normies. And if we are going to react to these types of situations as normies, then I have no reason to belong to this community. It is about Paul, and Paul has been traveling a lot, and I am giving him as much support and as possible. After Thunder Bay, once he's back in Sacramento, my guess is he's heard about my views about this by now. I have not brought them up with Paul yet because he's traveling, and I don't expect a response yet. And this is not something that is going to blow over as far as I am concerned. So when he has the time, we're going to discuss this. Hopefully he's going to be... we've been planning for him to come on my channel for a long time. It has always been planned to be called Paul Vanderklay Destroyed with Facts and Logic. And at the end of it, I hope that we're still friends. And I suspect that we will be. I just have no clue how disappointed I am going to be in him, how sad I am going to be, and whether he is... I honestly don't know. Maybe he is going to listen to what I have to say, think about it, decide that I was in fact right, make videos which will make me incredibly proud of him and happy to be back on Bridges of Meaning. If he does, there's going to be a certain number of people who are going to be incredibly happy because I am... Grizz destroyed him with Facts and Logic? I didn't see that. Or you may be joking. But Paul's going to have to choose to be a part of the culture war. And the way this went down is precisely the one way... like, anything they had done would have been better than how they actually reacted to it.
Anything. I'm trying to think about the ways what you could do. Like, we already paid you, we already made this choice. This is your sort of thing. I don't think Pika is interesting in being in.
I was very surprised because I figured he would realize um, he would realize that this was not how we should react. But
Yeah.
I mean, I was disappointed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Carol
Um.
of California Experience. I don't know who you are, Carol, but welcome.
Uh. So you're gonna have him on your channel? He's gonna be a guest. Like.
We've been planning that for a long time. It wasn't going to be about this, but it's certainly going to be about this now.
Okay.
So
What was it gonna be about before?
all kinds of things, including similar type stuff, but different things. I don't know.
Okay.
Go to bed. It was nice talking to you.
Uh. Yeah. I. So you need to be able to recognize that it's attack. I agree that like this is one of the more obvious attacks, but it seems like there's sort of an infinite number of ways that this can be used. Uh,
Hey
I don't.
Claire, how you doing? That was a joke.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um. Okay. Yeah, I think she was over here for the to see the Hebrew Bible stuff, and this is not Hebrew Bible stuff.
I'm still not sure about this, Carol. If she really lives in California, like she claims, and I believe she even claims to live in Southern California, when I meet her, I will then believe she's not Claire.
I'm pretty sure she is not literally Claire. Doesn't mean you should believe her and there's
Uh,
not some sort of conspiracy or
I
whatever.
am 60% sure she's not the person Claire. 60% sure.
Hmm.
Another 50. So 40% she could be Claire, just that person.
Hmm.
Another 50% is she works for and or with Claire. Another 10% is she's just a really weird person like Claire. Okay,
I mean,
9% she's another weird person like Claire. 1% she's what she's claiming she is.
yeah, I swear I had skimmed the her video feed and there was like, yeah, there's an interview with White Muslim woman. So like that's
There
all going
is,
on.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Neither one of whom were on video, by the way.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I don't know what's with that. That is a little strange.
Claire also claims she can't believe I think this.
Um, so yeah, I think I agreed with you a little too fast. What do you think people who disagree with you think? What is going through their head? Is it just uh
Which people?
Godwin's Gnaw, lol, or what?
What? Which people?
The people who disagree with you about the situation with Chad.
Which people who disagree with me? There's lots of people who disagree with me about chat.
Yeah, but on so you think there's several disagreements, but it seemed like most of them were like Holocaust lol, right? Was this what was going on, or was there a
No,
deeper
there
disagreement?
were different views.
Okay.
So, Jared thought I was just taking it way too far. He's like, okay, these people had complaints. Why are you turning this molehill into a mountain? Um, Sam thinks I'm being silly because he thinks um, nothing important happened. Another person I'm not going to name told me he thinks we won. The reaction was proper. Um, Several people think that I don't understand what happened correctly, was not there, don't have enough information.
Mhm.
Um, Several people seem to think that I'm just one of these weird people that like flies off the handle and like I just don't understand things.
Okay.
At least one person seems to think that this is me being a Jew who doesn't understand Christian love.
Oh.
Um, there's lots and lots of reasons to think that I'm wrong. And there are lots of people who think that I'm right for reasons I would disagree with.
Okay. Well, it seems like the disagreement, maybe I'm reducing it, but it makes sense to me, which is that they think this is a binary thing, that you can either win by having the conference or lose by having the conference canceled. We didn't lose by having the
Conference
thing
canceled.
canceled. Yeah. Then, so therefore we won, which is not true.
There are people who think that, yes.
Uh, and that's
There
clearly
are a
not
lot of
true.
people who think that having the conference go through as it did was a victory.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not as bad of a loss, I guess, maybe. But like,
I'm not so sure about that. I think if the conference had been canceled, we would have done better. We would have been. See, this is
because
the
then
thing.
you could have parlayed it into like all this attention, and then these people are so bad, right?
See, this is the thing. Like, I think there was literally zero chance that there actually would have been
Oh
the
wow.
the the actual. That's why I mean what I mean about they handled it the exact wrong way. Like the people who were making this attack knew precisely how we would react and got the precise reaction they wanted, which gained them precisely what they were hoping for.
You think he could have literally said, "We are Nazis, cancel this," and this would have been a better outcome? Uh,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
it would have. It would. Yes, that is exactly it. Which is why one of the only, like, I'm thinking of my alternatives, and one of them is um, I need to go into Daily Wire mode, which is, yeah, call me a Nazi. Call me a Nazi. I dare you. I dare you. Call me a Nazi. Go ahead. Call me a Nazi.
Mm-hmm.
Watch me not care. Call me a Nazi.
Yeah. Um. Okay, that could be fun. Uh, I don't
No,
know if I could imagine
okay.
a pastor doing that, but
You
that
you
sounds
more
fun.
than you more than most people know about my fight with the Black Hebrew Israelites, right?
I do know about it. It is a thing. Yeah.
And 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 what did I do? I got a bunch of subscribers. I got a few bad reviews on my business Facebook page. And I got the Black Hebrew Israelites to be like, we need to leave this guy alone.
Yeah. Um. Did you ever actually like teach some of these guys Hebrew? That would have been kind of cool. That would
That
have
would have been great. I did actually contact Andrew from Aleph with Beth
been.
and suggest to him that since they have their scripts and stuff, and they have contacts with people in Africa,
Hmm.
that if they were able to put their videos out with black actors, they might have a.
Oh, that would be so cool. You get like real Ethiopian Jews. That would be really interesting.
Well, I don't know about Ethiopian Jews, but just if I mean, so Andrew actually works in translating. He's an actual Bible translator,
Hmm.
and he works with like all these African tribes in Africa, translating the Bible to their like languages,
Hmm.
and so he has a lot of communication. And the reason they started their channel was to teach the people who are learning, who are translating to these languages, actually teach them some Hebrew. That was the idea behind their channel.
Mhm.
So if it would be really, really awesome if it would be really, really awesome if they actually were able to put their because their videos don't actually, there's no English in them at all,
Yeah.
and they have their scripts. And if they were able to, like, if it wasn't a blonde, blue-eyed woman like Beth
Hmm.
and Andrew, it was, if it was just black people who were, they could definitely, like, and I tried putting them in contact with Vocab Malone and stuff. That would be awesome if they could do that.
That does sound really cool.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope some of that happens because
I hope so too, because apparently there's like a million black people in the United States that are somehow involved with the BHI.
yeah, I mean,
That's
I
huge.
think yeah. I mean, I don't think they're right or anything, but it'd be cool like if they knew real Hebrew and got in contact with the Bible and got closer to God. That would all be good stuff. Uh, yeah.
I never was really that involved in with BOM, but I've always had a feeling they didn't have the roll the shoulders back in them, at least not the leadership. Actually, I think it's more of a problem of not the leadership. I think to some extent Paul has this thing of, okay, I'm not there. I'm going to empower other people to do whatever they're going to do. This is, he has a very Jesus take the wheel attitude, and he has a very Jesus take the wheel attitude, and I think part of the problem was he's like, oh well, the people in Germany, they're gonna deal with it, and the people on Bridges of Meaning, they're gonna deal with Bridges of Meaning, and I'm just gonna let everybody do. He's incredibly Protestant. That's and there are strengths to that and weaknesses to that, and I think part of the problem is how Protestant he is. Okay. Unless other people have things to say or you have something you want to say before I end the broadcast, I should probably go and do productive things with my life. Um, Roman? Well, apparently I lost Roman.
Yep. I'm
Roman?
back.
There you are.
Yeah.
Do you have anything you want to say before we end the broadcast?
Uh, no, but I hope things go well with Paul. I hope figure it all out.
Yep. Me too. It was
All
nice
right.
meeting you.
Nice talking to you. Good night.
Good night. Later, people.